Friends and family, it's me in part 2 in the RAW.RKs Guyana Free Media. During the Kaicho news, and we will do some, hopefully, on the Saturday first. This one here that I'm using currently, that is the Sunday Stabrook, and we also have the Guyana Times. Let's go back to the Kaicho news. The top cop, Commissioner of Police, Leslie James, sent on pre-retirement leave. Sometime now, it is known that he should have gone on leave for a while. But because of political machinations and political expediency, His Excellency the President admitted that they had some special operations himself and Miss Deputy Commissioner Maxine Graham were looking into, which to my opinion was political masterminding and being the tool of oppression of democracy and righteousness. Friends and families, the Guyana Police Force has always been my friend. My father was a police officer. He died a senior officer, albeit travail and pain in the police force, torment, racism and otherwise that he suffered from. But he was a police officer, and I grew up loving the police force and looking up to the police force. And all the commissioners were most professional, including Laurie Lewis. That even when the PPPC government took power in 1992, the latter part, they had a discussion with him and he asked him if he will be professional. And Dr. Cherry Jagan kept him on for years, friends and family, brothers and sisters. This shows what kind of a people Dr. Cherry Jagan was and his party compared to what we saw. Persons disagree and they became patrol officers. My own father suffered so much under their hands. For 11 years he was kept as an inspector, one of the most dynamic and brilliant police officers. But all in all, from the time of Lloyd Barker, we had much more professionalism in the Guyana Police Force. All the way through. Larry Lewis created history and the subsequent officers. But this time, I'm ashamed to say, that a man like Leslie James, whom I looked up to, blocked his number. People of caliber can't reach him to give information, to guide, or to chat. Leslie James dissolved his legacy, destroyed it, and managed, not professionally, during the elections 2020, I would say, with a serious bias. I was there at the count. I was there at the recount. And for all the things I'm noticing. And then Miss Maxine Graham, up to 2 years ago, was the most elegant and professional lady and a scholarly police officer that we had hoped one day would have been the first female police officer in this, that became a commissioner in this country. My beloved friends and family, brothers and sisters. Commissioner of Police Leslie James has been asked to proceed on his pre-retirement leave, leading into his ultimate retirement. However, one of his deputies, Maxine Graham, who has leave due before her retirement, is still on the job. Kaiser News understand that the Commissioner has handed his letter of instructions on Thursday. That he was handed his letter of instructions on Thursday. The duties of that Commissioner will be performed by Deputy Commissioner of Police, Nigel Hoppy, until a replacement is found. Nigel Hoppy, also, friends and families, known to be a much more professionalistic and a professionalized police officer, whom we, the citizens, the paymasters, of police officers look forward to for professional support and help, who will not lock himself away from the people, especially some of us who have information and who like to support the police and do things to help the police. Friends and families, basically that is it. I will not deal further with that. It is not anything, no kind of a special news. And so I'm looking for Kaicho News to go to my friend Freddie Kissoon. Some more cane juice, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, my cane field. And then it's watered and nourished by it's grown around the fish pond, my cane field. And so it's receiving its nourishment naturally from the fish pond. I put no fertilizer for years. We have been picking and eating and sharing, and now I have my own machine to make my own juice, the way liquor was meant to be. In this episode 2, in the RAW, on this Sunday, August 2nd, 2020. In the RAW, Mongo LOWENFIELD, Kafkaesque tragedy, can a normal mind be silent? Mongo LOWENFIELD, Kafkaesque. Those of you who might not know who Kafka was, he was a complicated, as some would say, a deranged philosopher whose writings you have to read several times to really understand. I did a course with him when I was studying my police sciences to test our brains in Canada when I was in my late teens and early 20s. And let me give you the article by Freddie Kissoon, Mongo LOWENFIELD, Kafkaesque. So if you want to read youths, especially you youths, you will get a little bit lukewarm kind of things, because I know you guys, most of you don't like to read and study, and you like to do shortcut by Googling, or hoping to bluff your lecturers and professors at University of Guyana by trying to develop it. But when you read the real books, it's a journey into a mental labyrinth where you can't find your way out easily. And now to Freddie Kissoon. I will never see some political icons, admirable scholars and other Guyanese personality the same way again because of their attitude to the Kafkaesque descent of two GCOM election officials that may deviate the future of this country. I make both the political and theoretical distinction between these groups of people and the politicians who have lost power by the result of the 2020 elections. Moses Nagamutu, hearing that name, I got choked. My nose started to smell some pungent aroma in the atmosphere. Let me take some refreshment. Yes. Moses Nagamutu, Kemraj Ramjatan, Raphael Trotman, the signer with ExxonMobil of our birthright, our oil rights, and Desmond Trotman, a former powerhouse and intellectuals of the WPA, a former powerhouse and intellectual of the WPA. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is in the RAW, so I can't edit. I have to reread if I make a mistake. The GCOM commissioner comes to mind. What they did was wrong, but in philosophy something can be wrong yet be logical. Trotman invoked Walter Rodney for his fiendish, wicked descent into the degradation of GCOM, an unforgivable act But his position is understandable. Trotman will lose his political career and his employment when the new government comes into being. And if I may add, I think his law practice will seriously be affected. The WP and the AFC will be the first casualties. As we enter 2021, both parties will fade into nothingness as Guyana emerges into complete sunshine in 2021. Friends and families, yes, Guyana, thank you, friend Kissoon. Guyana will emerge. But these names will go down in shame, along with Lowenfield and Mongo, for all time. Not only in the history of Guyana, but in the annals around the world, and the name and history will be looked at in trepidation and degradation. Back to the article. The position of Trotman, Nagamutu, Ramjatan is even scarier. Not only are their political careers over, but there are serious question marks on their legal careers, as I just said. Big businesses is the atmosphere that the election crisis created will not hire these three lawyers, and many people as well. The fear is that the power established may see these companies trying to rehabilitate these discredited Guyanese. Many rich Indian farmers who bankrolled Ramjatan and Nagamutu when they were in law practice will not patronize them after 2020. It should be a surprise to all Guyanese home and abroad if tomorrow, and the coming days, the leaders of the PNC and AFC become more aggressive and shape their politics to bring down the country because they know that their future may be dead. But not only that, that many of them might find prosecution for illegalities and thieveries and conspiracies. But Dr. Irfan Ali has been speaking why. He's not looking for vengeance. Let's go back to the article. But how do you explain the attitude of Guyanese with no connection to power and with absolutely nothing to lose by embracing the rule of law and free and fair elections? UC Guyana is first in my thought. At 96, with a legacy that was intact, he literally threw it away by his bare-faced and almost cynical embrace of the Mongo Lowenfield Kafkaesque masquerade, Freddie Kissoon says. After 4 months of devilish designs to rig the elections, Guyana insists that he still does not have the facts to come to conclusions. Guyana has destroyed his legacy, unfortunately. David Hines lives and works in Guyana. He's not coming back. Prior to the Mongo Lowenfield Kafkaesque journey, Hines had a good standing among all Guyanese. Today, this gentleman has become a young Sydney King, who, like the older king, preached race incitement in the most inflammatory way. Each time this guy opens his mouth or put his hand on his pen, he spews a narrative of racial hegemony. So, David Hines is a disgrace as well for preaching racist hate and racist power play in the country, friends and family. WPA kings and queens, including Dr. Alisa Tross, Dr. Nigel Westmus, Moses Bagwan, Karen D'Souza, and others have written not one word about election rigging when they write about the 2020 election insanity. They avoid any mention of whatsoever of the Mongo Lowenfield Kafkaesque theater. You can forgive Trots. She was a tiny tot when elections were rigged by the PNC from 1968 onwards. But Westmus, Bagwan, and D'Souza have fought against fraudulent elections. None of the contests of the rigged polls of 1968, 1973, 1980, and 1985, and the referendum of 1978 contained the Draculian behavior exhibited by Mongo and LOWENFIELD. The attitude was like that, ladies and gentlemen, according to Freddie, like that of the blood-sucking, handsome youth. Dracula, Count Dracula, the sucker of human blood. All three of these named persons were arrested and victimized in the fight for the right of Guyanese to elect the government of their choice. Yet Bhagwan and Westmos have refused to reply to Desmond Trotman, who wrote that they would endorse the positions he has taken in GCOM. In other words, Desmond Trotman is telling the world that Westmos and Bhagwan are supporters of rigged elections. Lincoln Lewis has destroyed himself. Which employer will sit down with this shapeless, which employer will sit down with this shameless trade unionist and discuss workers' rights and the laws that underpin them when Lewis has monumental disrespect for Guyana's law and its constitution? My view is that if he chose a political party as a human being, he has that right. But for disrespecting the rights of the people, he has become a strange character. It has to be a mentally challenged employer who feels that in dialogue with Lewis, he can get him to understand the difference between a philanthropist and a common sense. Those of you who don't understand a philanthropist is a person who invests money for the good of humanity and country without looking out for a profit. Finally, I was both stunned and amused when I saw a WPA member of the government, Dr. Maurice Ogle, the head of NISIL, writing a letter in the newspapers in high praise of late Barbadian Prime Minister Owen Arthur. He wrote that he knew Arthur, but he disclaimed Arthur when his colleagues in the PNC and WPA said derogatory things about this Caribbean giant. About this Caribbean giant, when this great Caribbean integrationist denounced Ogle's colleagues for rigging the 2020 election, they still are, and Ogle is still silent. Friends and family, Freddie Kissoon. Salute you, sir. I can't show your face because this is not the edited version, this is in the raw, and I like to show your face on my screen when I'm doing the recording in my studio. Brothers and sisters, let us continue to think positive. Let us continue to hope that sanity and peace will prevail. And Guyana, rightful leaders, Dr. Irfan, I call him twice, this is twice doctors, from the University of the West Indies, will take his position as president. And he has learned, Dr. Irfan Ali, how to win hearts and minds and influence people, friends and family. Some people never listen, and they think they know it all, so they have to suffer the consequences. Your friend, your brother, me, Haji, Roshan, Haji, some people like me to use the title, Dr. Roshan Khan, say thank you for tuning in to part 2 this, today, Sunday, the 2nd of August. And this, the RAW.RKs Guyana Free Media in the Raw.